Welcome in to another new podcast from the Association for Materials Protection and Performance. As always, I'm your host, Ben Dubose, news editor with the AMP publications team. In that role, I create content for both Coatings Pro and Materials Performance, which are two member magazines of AMP. AMP, of course, is the shorthand acronym for the Association for Materials Protection and Performance. Today, we're going to be talking about one of AMP's brand new initiatives that we're really excited about, and that's the inaugural Maritime Coatings Contractor Forum in February of 2026. To help me do that, we've got three panelists who were and are instrumental in organizing this event. All three are leadership figures within the maritime field, so we're thrilled to have them with us today. Joining us are Jennifer Merck, Anthony Manglona, and Cassandra Frisby. And rather than having me just read off their background and qualifications, I figured it'd be more interactive if I allow each of you to introduce yourself to our audience. Jennifer, we can start with you.
Absolutely. My name is Jennifer Merck, and I serve as the Vice President of Maritime at AMP. I've been with the organization for 25 years, and my world revolves around helping maritime communities strengthen corrosion control, coatings performance, and workforce readiness. So that means a lot of my time is spent with the Navy, NAVSEA, NAVAIR, NAVFAC, the naval public shipyards, the painting contractors, just making sure that they have the training, standards, and support they need to keep our ships, ports, and offshore structures performing the way they should. So it's a mission I'm really passionate about and just proud to have this be my career.
And Anthony, we can go to you next.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ben and Jennifer. Anthony Manglona. I've been a coatings inspector for over 10 years now. I started off doing coatings assessment inspections from the double bottoms to the mast at air land on carriers. Now I work for a NAVSEA program called CCAT. It stands for Corrosion Control Assistance Team. And we go on board during availabilities and train and assist ships force in their preservation packages during the availability from beginning to end. Also, I'm an instructor for AMP, doing NBPI, and that's where I met Jennifer, actually. So it's been great.
Cassandra, we can wind down with you.
Okay. I've currently been in the industry for 20 years. Currently, my current role is a superintendent, working on the overhaul carriers, but I came up through Newport News Shipbuilding Apprentice School in the paint department and came up through the trade as a foreman, a general foreman. I went through the inspector route. So I've been in coatings for the last 20 years plus and just have a wealth of knowledge to offer.
All right. So as far as today's podcast and an outline for it, we're going to start by talking a little bit about the event itself. And Jennifer, these questions are largely going to be geared to your expertise since you're speaking from a staff perspective. And then as we wind down, we'll transition into a more broad-based discussion about the industry, things that are going on out in the field, industry trends. And that's when, obviously, we'll lean a bit more on the expertise of Anthony and Cassandra. So, Jennifer, let's start with you and the basics of this event, the Maritime Coatings Contractor Forum. Can you give us just a general overview of what this forum is and why AMP decided that this was the time to launch it?
Definitely. So this is a brand new event for us. And honestly, it is something that we feel the industry has been asking for. It's happening February 3rd and 4th at the Founders Inn in Virginia Beach. So the forum is bringing together everyone involved in maritime coatings and corrosion control sector in the Hampton Roads region. This is very specific to this region. We're going to see painting contractors like Newport News, Huntington Ingalls there, BAE. Equipment suppliers are going to be there, government representatives like Norfolk Naval Shipyard, NAVSEA, and Military Sealift Command. So we're bringing all of these people together with a very big focus on surface prep and coating application. It's for the painting contractors, this event. And I know we talked a little bit, why now? Why would we do this now? You know, I see the industry's going through big changes. We have workforce shortages, new technologies, tighter performance expectations, and people really want to have a place where they can have real conversations about what's needed and what's coming. So this forum's designed exactly for that. And it's our hope that this is the first inaugural one, but we want to do this also in the other maritime prosperity zones like San Diego, Jacksonville, Groton, Bremerton. So we're really excited to start out in the mecca of shipbuilding, which is Norfolk, Virginia, and just kick it off on a high note.
So in reading through the website, which is now available if anyone watching or listening wants to go to amp.org/events, you'll see the link at the top of that page. And one of the main components of the event is what's called the Contractor Club. And as I understand it, it's a dedicated Contractor Connect type of experience. So, Jennifer, can you walk us through what the Contractor Club is, how it works, and ultimately, what are you hoping that attendees will gain that participate in that?
For sure. The Contractor Club is one of the most exciting pieces of the entire event. It's by invitation only, and we're bringing together up to 20 maritime coating contractors in the Hampton Roads region and asset owners, which is including Military Sealift Command, BAE, Newport News, Van Wyn, Technico, Calgary Gerloff, Marine Specialty, just to name a couple. So we're bringing in these painting contractors, and what we're going to do is we have suppliers that will be meeting with them. So this is like a rapid fire networking session. We're setting up the meetings between the suppliers and the painting contractors, and it's all compressed into like a single high impact block at time. So the suppliers will get to sit down for 15 minutes and do a focused one-on-one conversation with key decision makers from the shipyards, federal agencies, and with the maritime contractors. What we're hoping is that they're going to walk away with a clarity, stronger relationships, and opportunities that normally wouldn't get access to in a typical conference setting. So, this conference isn't going to have the typical exhibit hall. So instead of having the suppliers wait for these types of groups to come down the hall and talk to them, we're pre-setting up those meetings for them and hopefully hitting the easy button for them.
For years now, one of the big talking points out in the industry is contractors want more representation. They want more opportunities to be heard. How does this forum address that concern?
So I think we're getting into like who's going to be attending this type of forum and who they're going to get to meet with. So we're going to have a really strong mix of NAVSEA, again, Military Sealift Command, Huntington Ingalls, all the main painting contractors. But not only that, we are bringing also in Old Dominion University, the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. So we're trying to cover the full spectrum where all of these entities get to meet with, we're hoping that the contractors bring their blasters or sprayers to this event, the QC, QA professionals, the cathodic protection people, engineers, so that they're all in one room under one roof talking about how to do sustainment in our community.
Let's look at it from the perspective of a potential attendee. If
Mhm.
someone is considering going to this event, who's going to be attending? Who will they be able to see in terms of professionals, other organizations? You've touched on a few of these already, but someone that's considering going to this, who are the potential attendees that they're going to see there?
I think who they're going to see is a wide range of all the demographics. So you're going to see the contractor, the engineer, the consulting firms, the suppliers, the asset owners. So we're bringing them all together. And it's just what I like about it is it's all maritime specific. And not only that, we're trying to even drill down to the coding application and surface prep techniques. So we want this to be a very specific, focused type of forum that the attendees will get the most out of.
We've heard so far that attendance projections are something in the ballpark of 200 to 300. Can you tell us a bit about the scale and just generally speaking, the companies or agencies that have expressed interest in coming out?
Yeah, so we have an amazing executive planning committee. Cassandra and AJ are part of that. There's over 30 of them. They're all listed on the website, which I'll have Ben maybe read off what that site is later on. So you can see a list of all of them. We're preparing to add their photos to the site just to show that this is a small snippet of the individuals that you're going to see there. But, we know how important it is for the members of AMP and the community at large to get to interact with Huntington Ingalls or with, like I said, Military Sealift Command, the Coast Guard. We're really bringing as many asset owners to this event as possible because it's who the suppliers and the painting contractors really want to interact with. We want to hear what their real problems are and how can we all work together collectively to drive solutions.
So you mentioned the website. To get the direct link, it would be amp.org/events/maritime coatings contractor forum with a hyphen between those four words, maritime coatings contractor forum. So we'll put that in the summary wherever it is that you're listening or watching this podcast. But yeah, it's a great website that just went live. Registration will be opening soon. So yeah, we'll have more specific information there. Just check out that amp.org/events page. That might be the easiest to remember.
Mhm.
Jennifer, there's a lot of maritime and coatings events that already exist, and early spring, late winter, that's typical conference season for the industry. obviously at AMP, we've got the annual conference a little over a month after that. What about this forum is unique? What makes it different than a traditional conference? What's the unique value add that you see from this event?
Yeah, so I think what really sets this forum apart is it's a working forum. This isn't a sit in a ballroom, listen to slides all day type of event. There's no exhibit hall where you're sitting behind the booth and waiting for individuals to come up. It's hands-on, it's discussion driven, and it's built around solving real problems. We want to interact with the audience. We'll be doing live polling during some of the sessions to see real-time answers and creating some dynamic panels where we can really try and start looking again at solutions. Another big difference is the accessibility. Contractors, government agencies, and asset owners can attend for free. So that's a big one. This is intentional. We want the people doing the work and the people overseeing the work to be in the room together, collaborating, sharing insights, and shaping solutions. So I think by having this be very regional driven, we're asking locals to come. It's free, that we're going to draw the high-end professionals that we're looking for to interact at this type of event.
Well, one of the really unique things about the Maritime Coatings Contractor Forum, as I understand it, is that it's a very integrated approach. If you go to the website, you'll see topics such as, corrosion prevention, coatings performance, obviously the technical side of the industry, but there's also a workforce development component to this. And, these two things often go hand in hand because the technologies that you have oftentimes are only as valuable as the people and the crews we have to apply them correctly. So, Jennifer, can you speak to, I guess, the way this event has a very integrated approach that tries to sort of balance all of the interests and all of the needs that are out there?
I think you stole my thunder because you really just explained it very well. But I mean, the truth is that workforce corrosion prevention and coatings performance are completely intertwined. So you can't improve coating performance without a well-trained workforce. And you can't improve the corrosion outcomes without understanding surface prep, coating application, inspection, and the new technologies coming into this industry. So none of these things stand alone. And one of the unique things about AMP and this event is that AMP works across every major industry vertical. We're in oil and gas, offshore platforms, water, wastewater, DoD, transportation. So we can bring those lessons learned from all those sectors into the maritime space. That's why we're trying to attract groups like the Army Watercraft Systems, the Coast Guard, and the offshore platform asset owners into the room, because their challenges might be a little different, but solutions overlap. So I think bringing together all these groups is going to make the conversation far more holistic, practical, and innovative.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as those industry specific items, we're going to talk a bit more about that in just a couple of minutes with Anthony and Cassandra. We're about to bring them back in. But before we get there, Jennifer, I want to let you address the sponsors because I know that's a huge part of any event like this. And there's already key sponsors that are lined up. Can you talk about those 4-star maritime coatings partners? I believe that's what we're calling them, and the
Yes.
role they've played and are playing in making this forum possible.
100%, because this event, because we're offering it free to 50% of the demographic coming, we have to have the sponsors step up in this role. And that's why we're doing that networking session, the speed dating kind of thing for them, because we want to go above and beyond what a typical sponsor would get in an event. So we're really just in the beginning of our sponsorship journey for this inaugural event. So I'm sure me talking about this on the podcast, I'm hoping it will attract some other sponsors. We have a long list that we'll be reaching out to over the next few weeks, but we are excited to share that we do have our first 4-star partner, which is Avdec. They've stepped up early, and it shows their commitment to workforce development, innovation, and strengthening the maritime industry. I don't know if everyone knows who Avdec is, but Avdec stands for Aviation Devices and Electronic Components. It's a company that specializes in providing corrosion prevention solutions for the maritime and aerospace industry. So as more sponsors come on board, their support will directly enable the high-value invite-only contractor club meetings that we're really looking for in this event.
What kind of benefits or opportunities do potential sponsors gain? You mentioned that you're going to be reaching out to more potential ones in the weeks ahead. So what does someone potentially get from sponsoring this conference, and how does them getting involved ultimately enhance the experience for the contractors that are in attendance and thus, benefit the industry at large?
So, besides them getting to meet with the painting contractors in the region, some of the biggest ones you can name, and asset owners as well, they are also going to get a half-page ad and logo in the program, logo placement on the signage at the event, verbal recognition in all of our opening remarks. Again, like in more podcasts that we might do, the option if they want to be on a panel for sure. I'd love to have the suppliers up there. They'd be speaking in that manner in a non-proprietary way, but just about the technology and the efficiencies it can bring, and also allowing them to have like a piece of literature at the event as well. So, hoping that this is a value add to them, especially with the additional meetings that we're setting up for them.
All right, now that we've outlined the forum itself, I want to turn things back over to our other guest. And in some ways, this can be sort of like a primer for the event because we're going to be tackling a lot of hot button issues for the maritime coatings industry at present. And I've got a list of topics that I want to get to. And generally, the goal is for this to be a free flowing discussion. So, Anthony, Cassandra, feel free to jump in wherever you'd like. I want to start with a very high level question that I'd love to get both of your input on. Cassandra, we can start with you on this. From your perspective, what are the most critical workforce challenges that you see facing the maritime industry today, from a coatings perspective, that is?
Getting experienced workers down into the workforce. They're coming, some are coming willing with the attitude to learn, but that experience and that turnaround time as far as getting it done within the schedule of getting these ships delivered back to the Navy, it has become much of a challenge. And then even looking at jobs, it's what I'm noting is as far as the coding failures that I've been seeing, it starts at the surface prep. So getting them to understand that it starts from the surface prep even before you apply that paint up there as far as how long it's going to last and understanding the why. So we have a fairly young workforce where actually a couple that I met with them today, they're under 2 years and they're learning, but it's again that time gap and being able to meet the scheduled dates is sometimes can be challenging.
Anthony, same to you. What do you view the most critical challenges being?
Yeah, along those same lines, and I have a different perspective working with ship's force. We're asking sailors during times of maintenance availabilities to drop their rate, firemen, maintenance workers, electricians, and to be able to, perform corrosion control at industry standard, and in a small, very small, limited amount of time. So, anything that we can do to help them with those jobs in that small amount of time, that'll definitely help out.
To piggyback off of his point, over here we have ship's force actually doing compartments and whatnot, and just understanding the quality of what we put out versus what they put out is something that we're noticing as far as in the coatings world.
So, when new workers arrive at the job site or the shipyard, and Cassandra, we can stick with you to begin this topic. What are the training gaps that you most often see when those new workers come in?
They go through training. I've actually sat through the training. I actually talked to some of the new hires. The only thing about it is just the retention. This work is pretty much you continuously do it to really attain that knowledge and be able to, eventually get to a point where you're independent. I can say you to go perform that surface prep, SB3, 2, or 11. You know what I'm talking about and can meet that standard. When you have a foreman, for example, with 10 to 15 people, that's a lot. I got 5 or 6 new hires to spend that time to get them up to par. Training is essential, but on that job training is really where they learn and become proficient at it.
And Anthony, same to you.
Yeah, the training gaps can be huge for the sailors. One of the big ones is coding selection, right? Where we try to get out of the mindset at CCAT. We train up the sailors for anything from 631 standards and really understanding that we're not just trying to match a color of what the previous space was, right? There are certain coatings that need to be used, and really just training them up on that.
Anthony, you've mentioned standards a couple of times. We've talked about NAVSEA. I know part of your job is training ship's force personnel on various industry standards. Where within that are the industries that crews often struggle, and what's the role of an organization like AMP in potentially helping that?
What AMP is doing right now, really highlighting its shipbuilding efforts. That's such a great start doing things like this and having this forum go on. You know, when it comes to with Ships Force, the mindset is really one of the biggest things. Again, we're trying to ask sailors to step outside of their rate and really perform to an industry standard. And again, the better we can help them out with that, the longer the ships will last for sure.
And Cassandra, from your perspective, what are the ways that the training needs that are out there, what are the ways that they are different between shipyard employees, contractors, and inspectors? Just walk us through how those needs sort of evolve depending on where you are in the chain.
I would say one difference, from shipyard employees to contractors, where we may have a shipyard employees that have been on carriers their whole career, some on subs their whole career. The contractor world, you're liable to be anywhere and everywhere, so your exposure to whether or not you're painting the hull or you're in tanks or you're up top side in the island house on painting on masts, it provides a different element that trying to get people to just understand you're just not painting in bilges, you're just not painting in tanks. Every area has a different aspect, like he said, a different coating, and the parameters in which you apply that coating would be different from like a two-part paint to a one-part paint to, what goes on the outside of the hull, yeah, outside of the island house. It's all different. So what techniques you use to utilize to put it on. Granted, the surface prep, it's either going to be a blast to a SP10, 5, 7. But when it comes to the paint applications, when you have your different type of coatings, which again have your environmentals and all that, trying to explain that to people and get them to understand. And that's a big difference in the contractor world. They get a lot of more exposure where you may just have this group that does this one area. And so they're limited to some aspect of that knowledge. And as far as inspectors, again, you might have inspectors that go from the top to the bottom, but they get a little bit more exposure, understanding what that right looks like in each area.
Yeah, you mentioned the technical properties of the coatings, and that's a perfect segue because the next set of topics that I want to get to involve the process and performance issues related to these coatings and materials, as well as just quality control. So, Anthony, when you're looking at coatings applications or failures, we hope not failures, but oftentimes we do see those. What are some of the common issues that you see in the field or at the shipyard? What are some of the, I guess, common themes or pain points that you come across on your job?
Yeah, that's easily surface cleaning, which I think Cassandra mentioned, and paint mixing also. Diving into these different coating systems that are required. Each one of them comes with different aspects to it, mixing ratios, induction time, stuff like that. And for the sailors, they use ASTM 718, their NAVC version of, say, a manufacturer data sheet, right, to get all that information. And us at CCAT, we help steer and guide them to know where to find this knowledge.
And Cassandra, same to you. What are the pain points from your perspective that you see on coatings applications or failures?
Much of the same of what he said, to include keeping trash out of the paint. So just the most simplest of making sure that you get all the brush hairs out of the brush before actually using it, if any extras coming off. And when you're using a roller mat, make sure if you see something come off, you're getting it off, putting your flashlight up to the surface perpendicular so you can see, any trash that might be in the paint. Like I said, the different mixing ratios, understanding your pot life, your induction time. Do you recognize when the paint is starting to kick over and you can no longer use it, to where when you're applying it, it's now thick on the actual substrate. So just those little things is something that I've been seeing. And then we're getting into the world, which you've been into a few years, of using cartridges. So understanding the temperature requirements for those cartridges when you're utilizing them also.
A few minutes ago, when I was talking with Jen about the way this forum uniquely blends the industry's technical needs and this focus on workforce development because they are intertwined, I'm curious your perspectives as people working out in this industry. How do the time pressures and the workforce shortages that we often see these days, how do those affect coding quality and ultimately the long-term performance of the asset? What's the relationship between workforce shortages and time pressures and the end coding application and the performance of it? Anthony, we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. Being in the position I am, I'm constantly seeing the same carriers rotated through, right, in Norfolk Naval Shipyard. When I see shortcuts happen, I can guarantee that the next time that comes back into avail, whether it's in Norfolk or Norfolk Naval Shipyard, I can go to that spot and definitely, predict that that coating won't last. So definitely, shortcuts lead to coating failures. Coating failures lead to structural damage, and then structural damage will just keep our fleet not operational.
Cassandra, do you see many of the same things?
Yes, actually in areas where we're contracted to go paint out, I'm seeing where there's already a paint failure where the paint is actually peeling up and it's actually pretty bad. So that tells me initially that the coating that was applied prior to either the surface wasn't clean or wasn't a correct surface profile up there for the paint to adhere. So it's really digging in and telling and explaining to the workforce the why of what they're doing and really how expensive coatings actually is to the Navy. Actually, when I was on subs, we talked to the admiral that was actually over the coding area of subs, and to really understand how much money and thought they put into coatings, because what they spend to maintain these boats, it puts you in a different perspective, understanding of doing the job the first time right and adhering to the standards that I put out there in the industry.
Yeah, as someone that writes for Coatings Pro and speaks to a lot of these contractors for our case studies, one of the real challenges that I find is it feels like the dialogue isn't always the same with regards to the way a contractor is looking at a situation and the way an asset owner is. And successful projects are typically when both sides are on the same page or at least close to it. So, from your perspectives, obviously, we're talking within the maritime field here, but what are some of the changes that could improve communication practices between contractors and asset owners so that this preservation work goes as efficiently as it can? Cassandra, we can start with you. What do you see as sort of the keys to good communication?
The keys bring the whole team together before starting the project to make sure everybody's on the same page and aligned in what roles and responsibilities, expectations that there are. A lot of times, people get their work and they just go. Really coming together to the table from a project management perspective to the codings to lining out the whole schedule so you know what the big picture is versus just only your part. It will make the job go more successful and be able to get the finished product that you're looking for.
And same question to you, Anthony. What tips, if any, do you have that might improve communication so that both sides are on the same page?
Yeah, so, in a shipyard environment, there's so many entities trying to work together, sometimes fighting for the same space. A lot of times, if you run into an issue, I think it's really taking the initiative to find out who you need to talk to be able to help solve your problem. Walk around, try to build rapport with the government project team, maybe the sailors who own that space, stuff like that. So really taking initiative to, I can't work right now for a certain reason, but what's the reason why? And then trying to find that out. In the meantime, it'll help you become more efficient as the availability goes longer.
I want to look at contractors specifically for a few minutes because one theme that frequently comes up, I hinted at this earlier, but a lot of contractors often say that they don't feel that they're a part of the larger industry conversation. So, from each of your perspectives, what does true contractor inclusion look like? I know that's what we want this event to represent. There's a reason that contractor is in the name. So, what does true contractor inclusion look like? Anthony, we can start with you.
Yeah, I think it looks like being meshed together with the entire system during an availability, right? Not just focusing on what you need to do, but understanding what's happening around you. Communication is key. And, myself as a contractor, again, being in a little different scenario with the CCAP program, I really, really build rapport with the government project team and the sailors at the same time on a daily basis. You just never know what you'll learn or how they will help you out in the future.
And Cassandra, same to you. What does contractor inclusion look like, or what should it look like?
Much of what he said, again, integrated into the system, attending the meetings, building the rapport with the construction teams, every entity that's in the process. And like I said, knowing where your work falls in that line, so you know when you have to get ready, when you need your material, and all of that encompasses that situation, I mean, it's basically keeping them abreast and included, and even having the representatives come and talk to their business in conjunction
And another
with everything else that's going on.
another potential benefit that I see from an event like this, you're bringing together different stakeholders under one roof. So when we talk about contractors, shipyards, suppliers, how can an event like this potentially bridge some of those gaps? Where do you all see the benefits of, something like this that brings people together and ideally can have them, speaking the same language? What are the benefits that you see? Cassandra, we can start with you.
I know for us, me and a shipyard employee and having the contractors, a lot of times they bring in new equipment where sometimes we have our own. So seeing the technology, the equipment that's more advanced, being able to go back to the table and say, hey, can we get this now that we know it's on the market? Granted, we have the conferences, we talk about new technology, new tooling, but actually seeing it in action, talking with the contractors and actually really building a rapport with them to see like, what are you using in the industry to get your jobs done more efficiently, more effectively, and then going back to the table to, help benefit ourselves and see if we can get those assets also.
And Anthony, same to you. Where are the areas that we can bridge gaps in an event like this?
Yeah, first, I think that this event being called a forum is fantastic. It just sets the precedence for what to expect, where we can come together as like think tank type scenario and really communicate with what we're going through. Communication is the key. You could be the best blasting company in the entire world, but if you're at your space and you're not able to get the job done because of things happening around you, well, being able to communicate that will, let the project go smoother.
We just talked about bridging gaps between contractors, shipyards, and suppliers, and bringing all of those stakeholders under one roof and having them on the same page is certainly beneficial to the contractor's end experience. It's also important for contractors and AMP to be on the same page so that we can do our job to serve them and serve the industry. So this is a broad question, but where can AMP most help contractors? What do they need from us in terms of, it could be standards, it could be training, it could be networking. What do contractors need from us at AMP to make sure that we're best serving them? Anthony, we can start with you.
You know, what we're doing now has been fantastic in having this exposure. Continuing to join contractors and the asset owners together is fantastic. So, this first step is to be in this type of environment. I think is to be really great.
And Cassandra, I'll bring you in on that. Where do you see AMP having a role here to further bolster the contractor experience?
I think this is a great start to have this forum where to have this forum and hopefully continue this forum throughout the years, at least once every 6 months to bring all the relevant contractors, asset owners all to one place and discuss. And it again, Virginia is a central location because of what we have going out here, but to have it at various locations and really understand what Bremerton or San Diego or the other locations are dealing with because over here we have the anomaly of humidity. Out there, they don't necessarily have that same anomaly. So, the way we handle those different aspects, we may be able to get some different ideas, but I think this forum and by other people coming from all over, it will definitely be advantage about different ideas that's getting balanced and talked about where possibly in the past it might have been a smaller forum.
So, for contractors to successfully execute their jobs and perform out in the field, there's a lot of things that need to go well, and many of them can be improved. And this event can hopefully play a role in that. The communication can be improved between contractors, shipyards, and suppliers. We talked about workforce development earlier. Contractors and AMP can work more together, but they also need the best technology. So, looking at the technical side of the fence, what are some of the innovations that you all see in coding, surface prep, equipment, in terms of new technologies in the 2020s? What innovations do you all see out there that have the greatest potential to improve results on maritime structures? Anthony, we can start with you.
Yeah, that's great. With the CCAP program, we really have a focus also on introducing new technologies, whether that's composite fittings, or different types of coding systems. And, in my eyes, I think the more sailor friendly a product is, the better it is. Now, just to reiterate, we're asking sailors who aren't industry, professionals to be able to, in a short period of time, conduct industry standard corrosion control, right? So, having things like advanced primers that don't have high induction times and, things that we can use inside wet spaces that we can easily roll on and brush on, sailor friendly stuff is great.
And Cassandra, same question to you. What are the innovations out there that you think will make the biggest difference?
I know one of the innovations I saw was, and we actually tested it out over here, was the I think it was paint removal using laser or plasma, something like that, I believe. So when I think about something like that in some of these places where it's tough to run blast hoses and all that, coming up with different innovative ways to get the paint removal process going without necessarily affecting the profile also. So where you can't necessarily, like I said, run a blast hose or water jet or do any of those evolutions. I found that to be pretty interesting. But like you said with the sailors, it's just kind of getting some of that new technology that's a little easier, user friendly for that people are just getting into the industry, and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone that's constantly looking for content for our publication websites, yeah, I can easily tell when I scan those military news services, there's a lot of content out there about using laser technology for paint removal. You can see that's a big emphasis that folks in the industry are very excited about potentially having a greater role in the years ahead. As we wind down our conversation, I want to look at things from a Navy and shipyard perspective. We've done a little bit of that already, but to sort of put a bow on each of your unique roles and how this conference potentially ties into that, I want to get you to speak to your individual areas of expertise. So, Anthony, what are the big differences that you see between the expectations of the Navy and the realities for contractors on the ground? And what are the areas that can be improved?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the standard, right? There's a reason why there's a certain coding system that is per the standard required for that space. Like Cassandra mentioned, that there's a lot of testing and evaluation that goes into these things. I think the main thing is if situations arise and issues arise, how can we work with our government counterpart to be able to get through this problem and solve this issue?
And Cassandra, from your perspective, what would you want contractors to better understand about the priorities or the constraints inside a shipbuilding environment?
One, adhering to the standards, and two, the schedule is what it is. Understanding how to build and build your case to that schedule and adhere to it, because a lot of times, we're pushing these schedules to the right for various reasons. So being able to stay within schedule because it affects something else. And then a lot of times, the thought process within the community, that's why we try to preach how the importance of paint is. Well, you'll start to shorten our window, but getting people to understand that the standards are what they are. We don't get to shorten the time due to, weather, cure times, cure to recode, just these different variables that, our schedule can't be pressed upon just because other issues have happened and you're still trying to maintain that end date.
All right, so to try and tie everything together as we wind down the pod, this Maritime Coatings Contractor Forum, early February 2026. If you could design the perfect event that's focused on the contractor, what's on the agenda? I'm sure some of this is certainly going to be reflected since you two are involved in the planning for this event. But from a contractor perspective, what should be on the agenda? And I suppose, what might be on the agenda when folks get to Virginia Beach in early February? Anthony, we can start with you on that. Sorry.
Yeah, from what Jennifer set up and being on the executive steering committee, I think the team has really done a great job in this being the very first event, right? We're continuing to work on the committee to mold the event into something that everyone's going to get a lot out of. And one thing that I enjoy about Jennifer is that she is committed that whatever happens on the first event, that it's going to be improved over and over again until we do get it right, and that we are essentially accomplishing the mission here.
And Cassandra, same to you. What should be or will be on the agenda? What do you view as the priorities to have a perfect event for contractors?
Like I said, the different events that's on the forum that we're currently putting together, I like the fact that, all our input is being taken into account and we're taking polls, we're discussing. I like the fact we're talking about technology, workforce development, a potential panel with military leaders, in the codings aspect. As I said, the speed kind of dating around in some capacity is just, it's a lot of different ideas of coming together in community that I feel like for everybody that's going to be involved, it's a lot of learning that will come out of it because people will be able to balance their ideas in different scenarios. And this team that, we've had a few phone calls, but everybody's engaged and willing to make this event. As you said, Jennifer Merck, she's putting, 100%, 100+% effort to make sure that this goes well and that this can be a continued thing throughout the years.
Anthony, you've mentioned a couple of times that this is just the beginning. This is just the first. So going forward, what are some opportunities that we maybe aren't capitalizing on yet for the industry as a whole, for events like this that seek to boost the industry and move it forward? What's an opportunity or two that you see out there that we're not fully capitalizing on yet, but maybe can do in the future?
Yeah, that's great. You know, After having this forum, I'm interested to see, as everyone gets together and communicate what's going on, I'm interested to see what someone else is going to come up with that's not out there yet, right? New technologies. And we're talking about efficiency here, right? To be able to get our ships out on time. And just to reiterate again, how can we help the sailors be able to accomplish their preservation efforts also? So I'm curious to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cassandra, from your perspective, what's the opportunity or two that you see that the industry maybe isn't fully capitalizing on yet, but perhaps can in the years ahead?
I think with conversations of, success stories and lessons learned throughout the coders community, a lot of people will start to understand the why. This forum will help more of the coders community and hopefully outside entities that may have end up attending understand the why we do what we do, why the codings are important, why the process is laid out how it is for the coding to last and get the full manufacturers basically buy in to say, hey, my product will last if you do this, that, and the third, and I guarantee it for X amount of years if you follow this process. So really just, everybody bouncing ideas, sharing success stories, like I said, lessons learned and just gaining all that knowledge of, hey, I think I did that one time before and somebody saying, oh, I should have did it this way.
Can I add something real quick? I think one of the things is a more unified approach to workforce excellence. And I think this is a step in the right direction. You see a lot of people training and certifying people in different ways. If we work together, the contractors, the shipyards, the MIB, Blue Force, suppliers, workforce councils, VOTEC schools, I mean, going down through high school students, I think we can scale this workforce model and dramatically improve the coatings and corrosion outcomes across the maritime community.
Jennifer, before we wrap up the pod, I want to let you make a final pitch to anyone listening that's perhaps interested in taking part or at least learning more, but hasn't taken that step yet. Why is this the right event? Just put a bow on what we've been discussing today and why someone in the maritime coatings industry that's listening that isn't 100% sure or hasn't been convinced yet. Why is this the event for them? Why is this going to be such a success?
Well, first, I just want to thank everyone who's supporting the event, including AJ and Cassandra, who are on this podcast and part of that executive committee. It's an amazing committee, very engaged, and we're meeting on a weekly basis leading up to this conference. Also to our early sponsor, AVDEC. But I guess at the end of the day, this is about strengthening our maritime community. We have real challenges ahead, workforce, corrosion, coatings performance, new technologies that we're all trying to learn and figure out how to adapt to. But we have incredible expertise across this industry. And you can see that on the call with Cassandra and AJ. If we come together and can share openly and learn from each other, I think we can improve the readiness and build a stronger future. So I'm just excited to see everyone in Virginia Beach. It's a beautiful venue. We're doing a really nice VIP event the day before the event for anyone that's in the contractor networking supplier event. So I'm just excited to see what everyone gets out of the event and we move forward from there.
On behalf of Jennifer Merck, Anthony Manglona, and Cassandra Frisby, I'm Ben Dubose, news editor with AMP Publications. Thank you all so much for viewing and listening. And before we sign off, I do want to mention the website one more time. It's at amp.org/events, but the direct link, which will be in the summary wherever it is that you're checking out this podcast, amp.org, ampp.org/events/maritime-coatings-contractor-forum, the name of the event. And forum is in that name because, again, this is not a traditional conference. This is something that's going to be very open-ended, very conversational. The idea is to bring a lot of different stakeholders together for knowledge sharing and ultimately to benefit the industry and move it forward. So one more time, I want to thank our three panelists today. Your insight was excellent. And with that, we'll sign off. For anyone that wants more resources from AMP as an association, you can get that just by going to the website, amp.org. You can click on the media tab, which has links to certainly all of our publication entities, but also the events tab. That's where you can find that direct link to the event website for the Maritime Coatings Contractor Forum. Again, the 3rd and 4th of February at the Founders Inn in Virginia Beach. All right, until next time, this is Where We Break. For Jennifer, Anthony, and Cassandra, I'm Ben. Thanks as always for listening. We do appreciate that very much. And please come back soon for more new podcasts from AMP.